No.
Hello, hello.
Hello.
While you're pulling up your notes, I'd really like to know, what are you drinking?
Hello, hello.
Holla. of
I'll let
course.
you introduce it.
This is Holla Stable Stout. Oh, still not.
Hold it up for the camera because the people back home don't know anything about this. Everybody has been drinking this at Sub-0 all weekend, but what is it?
These are our locally sourced ales and stouts and IPAs that we've wrapped in our Holla stablecoin branding, which is fitting for the stablecoin talk.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers, everyone. We ready?
Ready. Fire away.
So, some of our previous panelists rugged at the last minute, but fortunately Nico stuck around, reliable as always, and we pulled this guy off the street. But I'll introduce these two for people that maybe don't know them. So first of all, we have Nico, that was speaking just before me, is the co-founder of Velocity Labs, which is an ecosystem builder and venture studio focused on DeFi and infrastructure for the Polkadot ecosystem. And you used to be head of DeFi at Parity as well before joining Velocity, or founding Velocity. And we've got Ben. Ben is the COO of Hydration, which is Polkadot's primary DeFi rollup. And it features its own decentralized stablecoin called Holla, which is based on Aave's Go. So, let's get into some questions. I would say that during my time in Argentina, and probably quite a lot of LATAM as well, they seem to have embraced Web3 pretty strongly. For example, I can pay with QR codes pretty much anywhere in Argentina with funds that have been topped up via stablecoins. Do you think there's any actionable path for other regions to follow what Argentina's doing in terms of stablecoin adoption?
I can start. So the short answer is absolutely yes. I think one of the reasons why Argentina had such an expedited adoption of stablecoins was for these like macroeconomic factors that were very pronounced, like hyperinflation, low access to dollars. But if you look across other regions, not only in America, but in Africa, APAC, there's a lot of other regions that have similar economic circumstances, just less pronounced. And I can speak for my country, Colombia, which we don't have these issues of hyperinflation. We have our regular like economic situation, which is, a lot of poverty, et cetera, et cetera. But we also have an issue with access to dollars and a depreciating local currency. So that immediately creates a need for accessing something different than actually cash green bills. Mm-hmm. And that's where stablecoins fit the perfect role, right? And the numbers tell the story as well. Like, again, Argentina is really high up there in terms of adoption, but all these other countries are also making good strides in embedding stablecoin products, or digital dollars, as some are starting to call it, and making these things accessible for normies.
Anything to add?
Yeah, you can certainly see there's a huge
Speak up.
Hello? ABC. There we go. There we go. Yeah, a huge gulf between how this region is embracing the use of stablecoins versus certainly back at home in the UK, where you see constantly new stories about caps on stablecoins that you're allowed to hold and things like that. So it's definitely a very big difference there, and you'll see probably growing adoption just from the simplicity of use in regions like this where they have a more urgent need for it, perhaps. But yeah, whether or not being sort of slowed down by regulation, it certainly does help the process.
I'll add something else that I forgot to mention. I use this mental model to kind of think of where stablecoins are going, and I think stablecoins, specifically in these regions, are going to have a similar adoption curve as the one that fintechs had in some other countries. And what happened with fintechs, it's basically that it was a leapfrog situation, right? So the perfect example is China, where China, before it started like this huge macro bull run, They didn't have very solid and reliable financial infrastructure, but instead of building it out, they just leapfrogged and started providing financial services in digital forms. And that's basically the rise of WeChat and Alibaba and everything being financialized, but digital. And now they're one of the most advanced financial systems in the world. So I think it's going to be very similar with stablecoins because all these countries, Argentina, Colombia, countries in Africa, have antique financial infrastructure. And all of a sudden, if you have internet connectivity, you can start to embed financial products on top of blockchains. I think we still have, as I mentioned in my presentation, some like UX hurdles for us to improve before we get there. But that's at least kind of where I see stablecoins in the region.
Awesome. So, in some regions, such as Argentina, probably Colombia, a lot of local people, I would imagine, like using, for example, dollar-backed stablecoins as a kind of hedge against the local currency devaluing. How do you guys see the different risk profiles of, for example, USDT, USDC, which is backed by traditional securities or treasury bills, versus something like Holler, which is backed by crypto assets? Do you think one will have more adoption? Obviously, currently it is USDT, USDC, but do you see any issues with that adoption? And are crypto-backed stablecoins better in any way? I don't know if, Ben, if you want to start with maybe why Holler over USDT?
Yeah, I think it's a case of different risk profiles for different use cases and depends on what you need. So USDT and USDC are obviously incumbents. They're super entrenched. They've got all the on-off ramps you can think of. And they are backed by mostly US treasuries. So this backing is based on trust, right? I trust that I can redeem one USDT for $1 US if I need to make that redemption. But obviously there's very few parties that can actually make that switch because you have huge barriers to entry to actually be able to do that. So those are the incumbents, but you have that centralized risk there. You know, these parties, they can freeze those assets, which for some people is obviously less than desirable. Whereas something like a collateral-backed stablecoin, for example, similar like Holler, Go, many others, you're keeping that backing by it being backed by more than that value in crypto. Obviously, these are generally volatile assets, so you have risk there in terms of maintaining the peg because you're trusting that those assets have the value that they should have. So you have to have far more complicated mechanisms in place to defend that, but at least you are trusting a process that's fully online, fully auditable. Anyone can check that themselves, read into the code and see that it's all legitimate. So you're trusting code, you might be trusting economic game theory versus a central issuer.
Yeah, what I'll say to that is I think stablecoins as let's call it as a sub vertical is probably one of the most explored spaces in crypto, naturally because of the adoption that we've seen. But regardless of that, I think we're just starting to scratch the surface. So one thing that I generally like to go back to, because at that point I was working at a call and we also had a decentralized stablecoin at that point. That part of the cycle, decentralized stablecoins were the thing, right? Everyone completely understood the value prop of trying to like disintermediate money and state and do so in a safe and reliable way. But of course, yeah, these decentralized stablecoins, they've had some issues and a lot have improved their mechanisms. But still, you clearly see how their centralized counterpart have managed to get much more traction. And because of that, we sort of forgot the value of decentralization, right? And decentralized stablecoins. Because decentralization is not just like a philosophical thing. It's actually, I see it more as another form of security, right? You have like peg security, which they also Tether and Circle have. But you also have like, yeah, solvency, like centralized point of failure type of security, which decentralized stablecoins kind of offer a better model. So yeah, I'm very excited to see, well, I mean, Holler, of course, take a lot of adoption in the Polkadot ecosystem. but also the decentralized stablecoin space continue to explore and continue to create new mechanisms, so we can actually get more adoption on that side of the market as well.
Very nice. One thing you mentioned earlier was UX pain points for people. So, for example, you have different centralized stablecoins, different decentralized stablecoins. Just on Polkadot, we might have 2 decentralized stablecoins and 2 centralized ones. Then if you want to bridge them somewhere else, you might get like a wrapped version that doesn't have the liquidity of the native version. So how do we solve fragmented liquidity across ecosystems or even within Polkadot with these different types of stablecoins? Is there any ideas that you guys have?
Yeah, I think the starting point, and you're already starting to see this in some products, is solving it at the UX layer, right? And basically having the product developer kind of absorb that complexity in their own way. But it all starts by even changing the name. That's why I just said it, like digital dollars. Yeah. That's already a UX improvement. Because when we say stable coins, we're adding the coin name to it. And people that are not in crypto, they either think a scam coin or they think like video games. So digital dollar already is a tiny but decent UX improvement. And then to some cases, they even abstract away like what coin the user is holding. It could be USDT on Polygon, or it could be USDC on Polkadot Hub. But for the user, depending on the audience, but for the majority of the world, they shouldn't care. They should just care that the coin maintains the peg to the dollar and that they can change it for a good or for a service, or that they can exchange it for dollar cash or fiat cash. That's as much as they need to know. So I think that's a good starting point for UX improvements. And then at the lower levels, at the more infrastructure layers, I think, yeah, there's more to do there. Interoperability between chains with things like CCTP and USDT 0 are things that are helping this issue with wrapped stablecoins. But yeah, I think it's just one tiny improvement. We have a long way to go there.
And I think we can only expect for this fragmentation to get worse and worse and worse, right? Like everyone's now caught on to the fact that having stable coins as a core part of your protocol is quite important. And the USDT and USDC have had a free lunch for all these years, right? Like so many billions of supply, and they're literally just eating all of that treasury yield themselves. So you've seen it with Mega ETH. They're going to be enshrining their USDM into the protocol, and that is centralized in the sense that it will be backed by US treasuries, but that yield will entirely go back to the protocol itself. Hyperliquid USDH, again, it will be backed by treasuries. I think, I can't remember who it was who won the tender for that in the end, but again, that yield will be used to buy back Hyperliquid's native token. So people are catching on more to this source of yield, and actually that should be passed on to the end users or the protocols that are involved. So I can expect more and more of these to pop up, and then it's down to the application level to extract that away. A second comment about digital dollar. I did actually see in an app recently that use of digital dollar, and I thought that was actually really nice.
That we can't talk about yet.
Yeah, I don't know what you're talking about. But that's a really nice touch. Hydration are actually exploring moving more towards a sort of on-chain forex environment, because we have these stable pools that can have these drifting pegs. You'll start to see us exploring with stable coins for euros, for pound, or whatever other currency has got a lot of use, and then how can we switch in and out of those, and how can those make interesting products for the end user. But those on and off ramps, and you mentioned the QR payments and things like that Peanut is just like really great on board and UX.
I didn't want to give them the advertisement.
Well, I thought it was good, so I'll give it to them.
Great. How much time do we have left? If I can, how much time do we have? Can we get some questions, maybe?
I have all day. We
have all day? We'll just stay here until the kick is off. Does anyone have any questions for our panelists? Go ahead. Do we have a microphone? I was promised that we had a microphone for the questions.
You can give it a shot just shouting while we get the... Try it.
Yeah.
We'll repeat it. Dot coins? A lot of them. Yeah, they're not worth a lot, unfortunately, but we have a lot of coins. Was that the question? I think he asked, do we have a lot of dot coins?
Oh, do we have the DOT token in our portfolio?
Oh.
Personally,
yeah. As well.
Yeah, quite a lot, yeah.
Pretty, I don't like diversification. All in.
All in.
Yeah. All in. How
Nico
about you guys?
is all in.
Yeah.
I'm not all in, I'm
No?
in.
Yeah, you're in.
I think
Yeah.
Ben's 2 in.
Do you have dot coins? Ah, see? All in.
All in.
Okay,
Hell
we're
yeah.
all in. We're all in.
Big.
Do
Nice.
we have any other questions?
This one over there.
Man in the hat.
Yeah, I think we've seen experiments for non-dollar pegged stablecoins before. RAI being a key example of that, right? But I think the biggest challenge with it is that, I mean, I know I've always really struggled with this. Some people are really great, but having a point of reference that isn't just one as the base unit is really difficult for people. Obviously, Bitcoiners will often talk about sats and one Bitcoin is one Bitcoin, etc. So I think people do try this, but it's just often a lot easier or simple for people to comprehend when they're talking about something stable. Is that it's just a simpler accounting, unit for them to. But I know that they have tried this before. RAI didn't really take off. I think they're actually doing a new version of RAI that is going to have the dollar peg, but just because it's just so ingrained in people's mind. Perhaps that changes over time. Obviously, things like gold are your sort of more typical, supposedly, thing that's nice and stable. Obviously, the last couple of months, that's definitely not been the case. It's been up in one direction. But yeah, I think people will continue to experiment with those things, but it is a hard mental model to break, I think.
Yeah, what I'll say to that is that, I mean, what you're saying, kind of the loss of trust in fiat, it's definitely a trend, but these things happen throughout several decades. So I think we're definitely going there, but at least here in crypto, we can say we're trying to reinvent, reimagine, redesign money as a technology, and money today it's still fiat, right? So I think it's taking a stepped and progressive approach. Let's first solve what we have today, which is fiat, and make a better version of fiat for the general world. And then let's solve money as a concept, right? It has to be pegged by I don't know, nation state, or can it be a basket of goods or whatever. But I think, yeah, we just have to solve the first problem. Yeah, that'll be my take.
Do we have time for one more question? Or, yeah, we can do one more question if anybody...
Watch out, he's got a Kusama t-shirt.
Yeah, watch out, he's going to say some chaotic stuff.
Okay, USD.
So Holler's a multi-collateral backed asset, so it's actually even more complicated because it's not just DOT, it's DOT, Bitcoin, ETH, some other stable coins, liquid staked versions of DOT, so there's lots of different things with different prices. It's based on the Aave v3's Go, which basically uses market prices of these assets to determine how much you can borrow of this asset against that collateral, right? So when your position falls below a certain health factor, that means that there's a certain value of collateral backing it, it can then get liquidated in order to pay off that debt. So in the Holler protocol itself, it's always, one Holler is one Holler, but the value of the collateral varies obviously to that. So the economic theory behind it is that if you have borrowed Holler and then the price of that Holler on the market becomes less than one, you can buy it back for less than one and pay off your loan, and you've made a profit there, right? That's one of many features that we have to maintain that peg. But yeah, it's basically based on external market and internal market oracle prices of those assets, which are in dollars. So DOT being, we won't talk about DOT price actually, but Bitcoin being $95,000, for example, that'll be the market price. And if your position falls below, because it's a big Hades candle or something, then that might get liquidated. And then just to make sure that you've always got that backing of the equivalent amount of dollar worth.
I believe that might be all we have time for. Is it all we have time for? That's what we've got, my friend. Super.
Thank you very much. Give it up for this excellent panel.